Attention, senators, the legislature will reconvene in 5 minutes.
Mr. Clerk, for a motion.
Mr. President, Senator Blood would move to overrule the Speaker's agenda pursuant to Rule 1, Section 16, consider Legislative Bill 757 prior to further discussion of LB 816.
Senator Blood, you're recognized to open on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fellow senators, friends, all those that have actually come back from dinner, which isn't a lot. Hopefully people are listening. You know, the legislature has rules, so we are able to transact business in an orderly fashion. And these rules in general allow us to operate efficiently and fairly and expeditiously. And within the system of rules, the filibuster is allowed and is clearly being used to its full extent this year. And those leading said filibuster have the right to use this tool. But with that said, other tools are available at our disposal as well. One tool is the ability to file a motion to overrule the Speaker's agenda to bump a bill up for discussion and take a vote for that bill and any amendments. It is in no way, in this case, an effort to discredit our Speaker or disrespect the process. It is an attempt to work together to accomplish something and then move back to the agenda to continue the filibuster should those senators choose to do so and continue business as usual. We have the ability to respect the process while still allowing time to do the people's business. Many of us do not have the luxury of hitching rides on the legislative committee's omnibus bills or being placed on the agenda unless we amend from the floor. If we don't make bold moves using our set of rules, we miss opportunities. I am not making a hostile amendment. I am not doing a poll motion. I'm using a motion allowed within our rule book to attempt to get something accomplished. This year is a year where we must be creative and thoughtful to get things accomplished. 33 of you, perhaps more, have expressed support of my amendment for domestic violence victims. Please allow me the benefit of sharing that effort on the floor by voting green on this motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Blood. Senator Arch, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I rise in opposition to overrule the agenda, and I guess I want to explain what I'm doing with the scheduling right now. Obviously, we have a constitutional requirement to pass our budget. We have a limited number of days remaining in our session. And so today, I scheduled the 3 budget bills in anticipation that next week we begin the mainline budget bills, but that we could get these out of the way and make sure that they are taken care of on select. So that's where we are. Earlier today, I did have a conversation with Senator Blood regarding her LB 11 and did agree that she could attach that to 757, and I understand what her motivation is for doing this. But I think that there is a larger issue, and that is that given the limited amount of time that we have remaining in the session, given the priorities of making sure that we cover those, I have been very thoughtful in my selection of what bills come first. And so I would say, I would ask you, I have had to prioritize, and I would ask that you vote no on motion 994 in overruling the chair. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Arch. Senator Clemens, you are recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also rise in opposition to the motion. LB 816 is on the board. We've been discussing that today. It's coming out of the Appropriations Committee. It is the salary approval for the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, other constitutional officers, and it's part of the budget package that will harm the flow of the budget process, in my opinion. And I agree with Speaker Arch that we should continue with debate on LB 816 at this time, and I'm in opposition to overruling the agenda. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Blood, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hadn't planned on speaking more than one time, but it sounds like I will now. Fellow senators, we will be getting back to Senator Arch's bill, and the allotted time that is allowed will allow us to finish debating and getting to that bill for a vote. If we move expeditiously on the bill that we hope to move forward, there is no reason we can't get both done. But I do understand the concerns. And I said this at the very beginning, I'm not doing this because I have an blame any one person. I don't blame any one bill. What I'm saying is, and I don't have high hopes that this is going to pass, but you can't blame a girl for trying. I'm sick of waiting for hours and hours and hours and not accomplishing anything. Will never get back the amount of time that I put into my very thoughtful bills this year. And based on what I've been told, I'll be lucky if any of them even get on the agenda for next year. And that will be my last year. People put me in this position to get things done. People put me in this position to be their voice. My voice was muted, as many of yours were this year. This is the option that I came up with for tonight. I'm guessing how the vote's going to go in advance, but I really hope for those of you that have sat and listened that you understand that we have many tools in our toolbox, and many of you have used both poll motions and hostile amendments before on this floor. This is not a hostile amendment. This is a tool that we have to get things done. So if you were willing to vote for those things, perhaps you're willing to vote tonight for this tool that I've decided to use. And if not, no hard feelings, we'll move on and we'll continue to listen to additional motions on a bill that eventually we'll get to vote on. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Blood. Speaker Arch, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you. I just have one other brief comment. I mean, I appreciate what Senator Blood just said. I, like many others, have waited patiently. I would certainly wholeheartedly agree with that statement. That being said, we have limited amount of time, and I have attempted to prioritize. I think this would be a very bad precedent. Then everybody, well, why not? I mean, everybody then just, I've got my priority. Well, I've got my priority. Well, you know, everybody has priorities. Absolutely correct. But somebody, and it falls on me right now, somebody has to prioritize the priorities and make sure that we get done the work that we have to get done. And so, again, I would ask you to vote red on overruling the agenda. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Arch. Senator Mosier, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, colleagues. Not to comment so much on the bill itself, but the precedent. We all have bills we'd like to jump to the front of the line. And if we vote for this motion to overrule the agenda, then we're going to do it a dozen times. And whose bill deserves to jump in front of mine or in front of Senator Lowe's or Senator Sanders? I think it would make a free-for-all that I just don't think we want to go there. So that's my opinion. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mosier. Senator Wayne, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Responding to Senator Mosier, it doesn't open up a floodgate or cause problems because the body has, at least the majority of the body has to vote on it for that to happen. I think the issue and the angst is starting to become that certain bills are being heard, certain bills can get attachments, certain bills can have more than 5 amendments, certain bills can only have 3 amendments, and the arbitrariness of kind of this body and how we're getting there is part of the issue. The reason I'm actually speaking is because I think it's important, especially with the number of new senators here, that we are a speaker-led body, but this body has a lot of power to move things forward if they choose so. 2 or 3 people might be able to slow it down, but even within the slowdown, to be very honest, we're not making anybody work for a filibuster. My first 2 years, this body used to make me work to filibuster, but we're not doing that. This motion, I'll probably vote for because I think we need to make sure the body understands we actually run the body. We elect a speaker and the speaker puts the agenda forward, but how this body operates is determined by how long and how well we all get along. And part of forcing people to get along and forcing people to do things is our rule book and is the motions that we can all make on many things. I mean, technically, we could open up and never actually get on the agenda. I know 100% how to do it, and we can do that if people are that upset. I think what people are trying to figure out is how we are moving things, how we are putting things, and this is including me as a committee chair. I take ownership of that. So many of the committee chairs are picking and choosing what amendments they want to put on a committee priority, which is their right, but then they're being told they're telling other members not to even put it on. Once a bill hits this floor, it is our bill. It is no longer just yours. I keep reminding people, OPS was split on a floor amendment into 3 different districts. Anytime there's a section opened up or there is something that is common in it, you can file an amendment. If you want to attach a bill, attach a bill. We own that. And we also own the time that we have. The speaker can get up and say, we are going to recess for the rest of the day right now. That doesn't happen unless we vote for it. So while everybody sometimes are getting mad at the speaker, there's plenty of things we can do right now in here to move anything we want to move on. And I think this is an attempt. I like that. That's why I'm probably going to vote for it, because we as a body have to start taking our own ownership of how we want things to run. Instead of just sitting around saying, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault, these 2 are holding it up. No, we can get things done if we choose to, and this is an attempt to get that done. I think we should all start talking about what more attempts we should be making and having conversations with speaker and with chairmanship, chairman leaders, chairmans and chairwomen's. I hate chairman's, just the normal word. But to figure out how to move things. We knew this was going to happen when it slowed down. The body has to adjust to adding things to people's bills, and we got to be able to adjust. And sometimes we can look at the agenda and say, this might move faster if this is going on. So now we got a question. Do we continue till 7 o'clock, or at this point, 7:30 maybe, and then just keep going? Or we could actually pass a couple other bills that won't be filibustered. I don't know the answer, but I guess what I'm telling everybody, particularly this is part of our class when we came in, we did have some people who knew the rules and would get up and say these so you can learn them. And so there are plenty of things any individual senator can do to move things on. And this is one example. This is one example. Sometimes you drop it, sometimes you don't drop it to force a conversation saying, hey, I'm going to drop it. We're going to have this debate. And you know what? The speaker may say, okay, we'll schedule your bill next week or work with your committee to get this part done. But each individual senator has plenty of motions to make sure that you're having conversations and moving this body forward. I don't blame two people for slowing this body down. There's plenty of things we could have done to keep moving things forward. We chose not to. Some of us chose not to stand with them. Some of us chose not to because they just didn't care. But we can move this body forward if we choose to, and we got plenty of time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Wayne. Senator DeBoer, you are recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, this is kind of an odd situation. I'm kind of in a Sophie's Choice situation because 799 is my bill. It's next up on the agenda. And this bill that Senator Blood is trying to move forward is also my bill. They are both my bills. So I can't decide between the two of them. I'm going to be present not voting because I cannot say which bill is more important and wouldn't want to say to one group that one of my bills is more important than the other. But I hope we can get to both of these bills over the course of the rest of our session. I mean, LB 799 is a bill for judges' salaries. That seems pretty important to me. But LB 757 is a bill that deals with victims of crime and how they should be treated, children. So both bills are incredibly important, and I hope, maybe the speaker will give me a heads up if this is possible, that if not today, that there's another day that this bill will come up so that that both bills will have their chance to be heard. All right, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator DeBoer. Seeing no one in the queue, Senator Blood, you're recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. President, fellow senators, and I do say still friends all. Many of you missed the introduction. So in a synopsis, we have rules and regulations for a reason. They are tools that allow us to do the people's business. Sometimes we do things that may be unexpected and not real popular, but they're not done to disrespect the speaker. In fact, they're done in respect to the process that, unfortunately, as freshman senators this year, you really haven't learned a lot about. And it's unfortunate because learning the rules is a powerful tool to try and move this engine forward. In my first few years, we had pull motions where bills that didn't get voted out of committee were then pulled out by unanimous vote by this body. Those are hostile things. And many of you that may vote against this voted for those. We do have important things coming up for the budget, but if we can move through this expeditiously, we can get to those. I'm not sure why we have rules and regulations if every time we try and utilize them to the benefit of the people's business, we constantly shun them because we either don't understand them or we've been told we can't vote for them. There may come a time when you need to use this motion. Remember what happens on the floor today, because many of us have very long memories. Do it if you vote for it for the right reasons, and if you're voting against it, do it for the right reason. I, unlike Senator DeBoer, do not have high expectations that we will necessarily get to those bills. And my personal priority bill will never be on the agenda this year. And that's a whole nother story. And it's really unfortunate because I've worked for years on that bill. So maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised by Speaker Arch, and those bills will indeed come up again on the agenda and we'll get to discuss them. But for now, I'm trying something different. I'm trying something that as a freshman senator I was trained to do. I do ask for your green vote, and if not, we'll move on and continue to talk about Senator Arch's bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Blood. There's been a request to place the House under call. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
17 ayes, 4 nays, place House under call.
The House is under call. Senators, please record your presence. Those unexcused senators outside the chamber, please return to the chamber and record your presence. All unauthorized personnel, please leave the floor. The House is under call. All unexcused members are present. The question is the motion to overrule the agenda. There's been a request for a roll call vote. Mr. Clerk.
Senator Aguilar, Senator Albright, voting no. Senator Arch, voting no. Senator
This will take 30 votes.
Senator Aguilar, Senator Albright voting no. Senator Arch voting no. Senator Armendariz voting no. Senator Ballard voting no. Senator Blood voting yes. Senator Boston voting no. Senator Bostar voting no. Senator Bostelman voting no. Senator Brandt voting no. Senator Brewer voting no. Senator Breezy voting no. Senator John Kavanaugh voting yes. Senator Michaela Kavanaugh voting yes. Senator Clements voting no. Senator Conrad voting yes. Senator Day, Senator DeBoer not voting. Senator DeKay voting no. Senator Dorn Voting no, Senator Dover. Voting no, Senator Dungan. Not voting, Senator Erdman. Voting no, Senator Frederickson. Senator Holleran. Voting no, Senator Hansen. Not voting, Senator Hardin. Voting no, Senator Holcroft. Voting no, Senator Hughes. Voting no, Senator Hunt. Voting yes, Senator Ibach. Voting no, Senator Jacobson. Voting no, Senator Kauth. Voting no, Senator Linehan. Voting no, Senator Lippincott. Voting no, Senator Lowe. Voting no, Senator McDonald. Senator McKinney. Senator Mosier. Voting no, Senator Merman. Voting no, Senator Raybold. Senator Reapy. Voting no, Senator Sanders. Voting no, Senator Slama. Voting no, Senator Vargas. Senator Von Gillern. Voting no, Senator Walls. Not voting, Senator Wayne. Voting yes, Senator Wishart. Not voting. Vote is 6 ayes, 31 nays, Mr. President, on the motion to overrule the agenda.
The motion fails. I raise the call. Mr. Clerk, for items.
Mr. President, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh would move to amend the bill with FA 74.
Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, you're recognized to open on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. FA 74, let's see here. Okay. Strike section 2, okay. Strike section 2. And I've lost my place entirely. Oh no, one moment, please. What is section 2 that we are striking? Or not striking? Probably not striking. I've struck out. Whew, I'm amusing myself. Okay, section 2. Strike section 2. Let's see here. Section 2. Definition of appropriation period. For purposes of this act, FY 2023 to 2024 means the period beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30, 2024. And FY 2024 to 2025 means the period beginning July 1, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025. Interestingly, is that language necessary? I don't know. I think if we struck it, would it cause any problems? Probably much like the Oxford comma or not using the Oxford comma, it would cause a lack of clarification and precision in the intent of the legislation because we are leaving out the definition of the appropriation period. Now we know what the appropriation period is because we appropriate things on a biennium, a 2-year fiscal period. So it is inherently implied if we are appropriating something that it is being appropriated through the biennium. So it's not necessary. So you could vote for it. You could get away with voting for this. In my non-expert, non-legal opinion, you could get away with voting for this. Probably shouldn't though. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's like if we were to strike section 2, we may as well be striking an Oxford comma and chaos could possibly potentially ensue of complete misunderstanding as to the time period to which we are appropriating. Therefore, I recommend that this body not vote for this amendment. See, that Oxford comma, it's a good life lesson, friends. Sorry, I needed to get back in the queue. Hope everybody had a nice dinner break, no matter how brief. So we are on the salaries, and I did consider, Mr. Lieutenant Governor, I did consider doing another quick floor amendment to give you a raise, but I thought that maybe I should take more care in just like slashing and burning, and I don't know, we could still do it on final. We could pull back for a specific amendment and give you a raise then. You can't vote on it. Well, you could, I guess if we had a tie, you would be the deciding vote. So you could potentially vote on it, but as it stands, there'd be no conflict of interest for the Lieutenant Governor if I were to introduce an amendment to increase his pay. So there we go. Something to ponder. I do think it's interesting that our constitutional officers make different amounts, and it's clearly up to us because it's not in statute or it's not in the Constitution. They're constitutional officers, but their pay is not in the Constitution. So perhaps we should consider having a more equitable distribution of what the pay actually is. Because we have the Public Service Commission is paid something, we have the Lieutenant Governor, the Treasurer, the AG, Secretary of State, they're all paid different amounts. Judges are a little bit different because they are constitutional officers, but they're different constitutional officers. And so their pay is a different thing, and it's not an elected position. So anyways, different. But I do think that we should consider creating a more equitable and clear payment for our constitutional officers. So I think this bill goes till, well, originally it was going till 7:10, but I think we started a little bit late after our dinner break, so maybe it goes to 7:20-ish. I'll find out eventually. 7:20, 7:30, 21, 11, 1 and 4, 14. It's a pantomime. It goes to 7:14. That is in 17 plus 14. Oh my gosh, I have to do math. Okay, 17 plus 14 is 31 minutes. Yes, I think that's right. I didn't even use a calculator. I think this bill is done in 31 minutes. I hope this bill is done in 31 minutes. Okay, so I was going to get back to the NCSL website for some more fun information. So I talked about this earlier on the day. I know it feels like it was 5 days ago. It does for me as well. NCSL, the National Conference of State Legislators, great resource for lots of things. And my first year here, everything, like everything in everyone's life, everything is demarcated pre-pandemic, pandemic, post-pandemic. My first year here was pre-pandemic. And as such, I went to a conference. What? Yes, I did. I went to the NCSL conference in Nashville, Tennessee. And at that conference, the big to-do topic was Medicaid expansion. I love me some Medicaid expansion. So in talking about Medicaid expansion, one of the things was learning what other states had already done in their implementation of Medicaid expansion. And as a newbie, had just been on the job for 6 months or so at that point, and was really trying to learn as much as I possibly could about Medicaid expansion because we had just had it pass on the ballot. And it had gone to a vote of the people, and then it was put to the agency to do Medicaid expansion. They had to do a SPA, a state plan amendment, and that is basically a state plan amending the Medicaid program in our state. And there was a timeline on when that was supposed to be. We missed it by a lot. It was also very clear when it passed at the ballot that Medicaid expansion was to be the same benefits as the current Medicaid population. And at that time, and at this time as well, we had fairly decent Medicaid policy. But there was an attempt to change the benefit level. And in doing so, before the state plan amendment could be implemented, first, the agency had to attempt to change the benefits program for the current population. Otherwise, thank you, Mr. President. Otherwise, they couldn't have a diminished implementation for the new population unless they diminished the current population. So there was an attempt to diminish the benefits for the current population to a lower standard, lower level coverage, so that when they implemented Medicaid expansion, the new population would be at that lower tier. Clear. Yeah. So I found that to be confusing. Turns out it couldn't happen. Turns out the federal government said, no, you can't do that. So I don't know, 2 years, 3 years later, bygones, we have Medicaid expansion in the way that the voters intended it to be from the outset. So yay, right? Yay.
That's your time, Senator.
Thank you.
And you're next in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just take a sip of water. Why is she talking about Medicaid expansion? Excellent question, colleagues. I'm talking about Medicaid expansion because throughout today, I have been using the National Conference State Legislators as a resource when talking about the pay in the legislature. And I am just reminiscing now about the time I learned about Medicaid expansion from the National Conference of State Legislators, because it is an excellent resource. So I'm at this conference, several states, it's the hot thing to do in 2019. Well, really it was probably more in 2017, 2018. The hot thing to do was expand Medicaid. And Nebraska had just jumped on the bandwagon in the 2018 election and passed Medicaid expansion. And it was summer 2019. And everybody was like, Medicaid expansion's where it's at. Yeah, let's give people health care. What? Even if they can't afford it? No, that's bananas. But we did it. So it was a hot topic at the conference. And a couple of states had already done it. A couple of states were in process. They had submitted their state plan amendments. And these were states of varying political ideologies. And so they had a panel where they came and they discussed and they shared their different approaches to Medicaid expansion. And it was extremely helpful, extremely informative. I learned so much about all the different things you can do with a waiver, all the things you can't do with a waiver, but people have tried unsuccessfully. I learned about ways that government can slow walk implementation. I learned about ways that government can bloat government through the implementation. So all in all, an interesting learning exercise, I guess. So if you go to the NCSL website, they have a resources page, and they've got under the resources page, they have these different topics: research and policy, legislators in DC, find your state liaison, caucus and networks, A to Z issues, and NCSL contacts, training, legislative staff. Under legislative staff, NCSL provides a one-stop shop for professional development and connections to legislative staffers around the country, and is home to 9 professional staff associations and other staff networks. Cool. Let's look at research and policy, shall we? Early Childhood Fellows Program. Oh, I was the Early Childhood Fellow for the state of Nebraska. I was also the Maternal Health Fellow for the state of Nebraska. You might sense a theme in areas of my interest. So let's see here. Early Learning Fellows Program is a year-long opportunity. Legislative staff particularly interested in the topic of early care and education. Child welfare Fellows Program, Youth Homelessness Fellows Program. Interesting. NCSL statement addressing our nation's fiscal challenges. Oh, that was updated today. Well, that is very interesting as we're talking about these budget bills. Let's take a look and see. It's loading. It's thinking. It's considering sharing this information with me. It's giving it very deep consideration at the moment. Very, very deep consideration.
1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's still considering with 1 minute left if it's going to share this. So I will probably, if it shares this information with me, I will share it with you on my next time on the microphone as it continues to think about what it wants to share or not share. Seems like everything now is just thinking. We're just in a thinking mode. We're just in a thinking mode. It's like, it's almost 7 o'clock. You've been using me a lot today. I'm just going to think for a little bit. I get it. I get you, computer. I feel the same. Absolutely. Here we go. NCSL statement addressing our nation's fiscal challenges. For immediate release today, April 26, 2023. Interestingly, we also had our fiscal forecast today, and I haven't had a chance to catch up on what the forecast is, but I heard it was a mixed bag. So love to learn more
That's your
about that.
time,
Thank you,
Senator.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Senator Hunt, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition of Floor Amendment 74 and in support of LB 816. I also supported Senator Blood's motion to reorder the agenda. And here we find ourselves. I received a letter today from a child in New Jersey who's 12, and it says, it's handwritten on loose leaf paper. Dear Senator Megan Hunt, thank you for what you are doing. I'm not trans, but even I can see how unfair this law is. And they go on to say some very flattering things. But a 12-year-old saying that, I'm not trans, but even I can see how unfair this bill is, reminds me of what my kid said. You know, when I asked him, are you experiencing bullying? Are you okay? Are you doing okay at school? He shrugs and goes, the only people who bother me are your colleagues. The only people who bother me or say anything about me are the people you work with. Kids don't treat each other this way. Anyway, a mess. What I'm a little bit focused on today, and what I think we cannot be silent about, even all of us, I mean, no matter where you stand on this issue, is people across the country who are lawmakers who are being silenced or disciplined or censured just for vocalizing their support for LGBTQ plus people, just for vocalizing support for progressive issues. Like Representative Zoe Zephyr today, who was removed from the Montana House of Representatives. And about an hour ago, she released this statement that I want to share in our own record in Nebraska. In a disturbing affront to democracy, today the Montana House of Representatives voted along party lines to banish me from the House floor, effectively stripping me of my ability to represent my 11,000 constituents in debate. After silencing me for a week, they then proceeded to silence hundreds of Montanans who showed up to demand that their representative's voice be heard. As the House debated my punishment, I stood unwaveringly in defense of my constituents, my community, and democracy itself. In recent months, the legislature has launched a relentless assault on the LGBTQ plus community, introducing bills that aim to undermine our art forms, our literature, our history, and our health care. As I confronted the ban on gender-affirming care and exposed the grievous harm these bills inflict, I held those responsible to account. Subsequently, Speaker Reger denied me the right to be heard on any bill moving forward. When I continued to not be recognized, Montanans gathered to support my right to speak on behalf of my constituents. When the Speaker refused to acknowledge me, they raised their voices in protest. As he attempted to gavel them down, what he was really doing was driving a nail into the coffin of democracy. But you cannot kill democracy that easily, and they persisted in chanting, "Let her speak," joining our country's great history of protesting on behalf of democracy. And as I raised my mic, I sought to amplify their voices in solidarity. Though the Republican supermajority has voted to strip me of my ability to take part in debate, I remain steadfast in my commitment to my community. I will continue to make the difficult moral choices necessary to stand up for the people who entrusted me with their representation. My gratitude for those who spoke out on these principles is bound.
1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I pledge to always stand up for them and to tirelessly advocate for democracy in the state of Montana. When we focus on these divisive issues, we really create an environment of hostility that drives people away from our state. We heard from the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, the Omaha Chamber today, there's already 2 organizations that have declined to host events in Omaha because of these laws that are pending in our state. This is a big deal. It's a shame. And one person in this body has the power to change that. And I know there's more than one of you who want to. In the end, maybe we see like 6 people end up voting for that bill because you all finally come off and have the courage to hold together as a block and do the right thing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, you're recognized to speak. This is your last time before your close.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay. So, NCSL. A statement addressing our nation's fiscal challenges for immediate release. Okay. Washington, D.C., the National Conference of State Legislators, NCSL, released the following statement in response to potential reductions to discretionary funding. NCSL continues to call on both the administration and Congress to address the U.S. statutory debt ceiling and consider serious long-term reforms that will reduce the national debt and put the country on more sustainable fiscal footing. We believe a comprehensive, bold, and aggressive. They did not use the Oxford comma, everybody. We believe a comprehensive, bold, and aggressive plan is needed to address our nation's fiscal challenges and strengthen our economy. NCSL urges all options to be on the table. Pardon me. Discretionary and non-discretionary spending. This means examining all possible avenues for deficit reduction, including entitlement reform, tax expenditures, and federal tax reform, and that any legislation be analyzed thoroughly for its potential impact on state and local governments. Okay. While responding to budget pressures, NCSL urges the federal government to avoid simply shifting costs. Great. Then let's see here. What else do they have to offer us? Okay. It's thinking again. I like when it thinks about what it wants to tell us. And let's see. So, well, I guess I can just talk while it's thinking. It's just going to think. I think I've overutilized it today, so it's just going to think. Interestingly, though, the Oxford comma or lack thereof continues to become an issue. So we see, and I meant to, I'm sorry, I am not being a person of my word. I said before dinner that I was going to dig in on the Oxford comma and the differences or the, let's say, interplay of the Chicago style of writing versus the APA style of writing and the stance on the Oxford comma with both. And I did not do my homework. Why? Because I ate food. That's why. It's a 30-minute break and I ate some food. So My apologies to everyone who was waiting with bated breath to hear the scintillating conversation of the APA styles take on the Oxford comma versus the Chicago styles take on the Oxford comma. I may yet get to it tonight, but I just won't get to it right now. So I think that how much time do I have left, Mr. President?
1 minute, 27 seconds.
1 minute, 27 seconds. And then I have my closing. Yes, my closing. Okay, well then. So again, this bill is the salaries for constitutional officers, and the FA 47 strikes section 2, which
1 minute.
much like the Oxford comma, depending on who you talk to, is necessary or unnecessary. Provides clarity for sure. Section 2 provides clarity in the underlying bill, but isn't necessary. I don't think it's an essential section. It's not an essential section, but it does provide clarity. And when we are talking about laws and statute, regulations, all those beautiful, sexy things, clarity is key. So I suppose to that end, we should not vote for FA 47. I'm going to stand firm on this. Colleagues, vote against FA 47. No, not 47. That's not on the board.
That's your time,
Maybe
Senator.
vote against that too. I don't know.
And Senator Kavanaugh, you're recognized to close on FA 74.
FA 74 as opposed to FA 47. If any of you have FA 47, I am sorry for disparaging it. I don't know what it is. I meant 74. FA 74 is the Oxford comma of this bill, LB 816. It is not essential, but it does provide clarity, and clarity is key. So I suggest, colleagues, that you not vote for FA 74 because of the Oxford comma, to be real. Provides clarity. Section 2 provides clarity. Without either, it's chaos. So let's just do that. I think I'll leave it there and call the House, Mr. President. Thank you.
There's been a request to place the House under call. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor, vote aye. All those opposed, vote nay. Record.
7 ayes, 2 nays to go under call.
The House is under call. Senators, please record your presence. Those unexcused senators outside the chamber, please return to the chamber and record your presence. All unauthorized personnel, please leave the floor. The House is under call. Senator Wayne. All unexcused members are present. The question is the adoption of FA 74. There's been a request. No. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
0 ayes, 36 nays, Mr. President.
The amendment is not adopted. I raise the call. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh would move to strike Section 3. This is Floor Amendment 75.
Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, you're recognized to open.
Thank you, Mr. President. Section 3. Now, Section 3 is not going to be the Oxford comma of this bill. The call's been raised, by the way, colleagues. I know you all are dying to hear how this Oxford comma saga plays out, but I thought I'd just let you know you don't have to. Okay, so Section 3, let's get to it, shall we? We have 6 minutes. 6 minutes. So don't go far before we get to cloture on this bill. Or do, I guess. Just letting you know that in 6 minutes we will be getting to cloture on this bill. Okay, so sorry, I was just ill prepared for the next one. FA 75, Section 3. What is Section 3? What are we striking? Let's see. Appropriations Amendment. There we go. Section 3, Nebraska Accounting System Manual Definitions. Oh, maybe this is another Oxford comma. I may have spoken too soon. Hold on, folks. Okay. The definitions contained in the Nebraska Accounting System Manual and any amendments thereto on file with the clerk of the legislature are hereby adopted by the legislature as the definitions for this act, except as provided in Section 21 of this act. Ooh, saucy. What happens in Section 21 of this act that supersedes the manual, like Nebraska Accounting System Manual, on file with the clerk of the legislature? Let's jump down and see, shall we? Section 21, Section 19, 20. And okay, Section 21. Limitation on salaries, wages, and per diems. As used in this act, salary limit means total expenditures for permanent and temporary salaries and per diems. And total expenditures for permanent and temporary salaries and per diems means all remuneration paid to employees treated as taxable compensation by the Internal Revenue Service or subject to Social Security coverage, specifically including payments accounted for as vacation, holidays, sick leave, military leave, funeral leave, maternity leave, administrative leave, compensatory time, deferred compensation, or any other similar form, and amounts withheld pursuant to law, but excluding state contributions for Social Security, retirement, and employee insurance plans. 2, total expenditures for permanent and temporary salaries and per diems are limited to the amount provided by law for constitutional officers. 3, the limitation on expenditures for permanent and temporary salaries and per diems for FY 2023 shall be increased by certified encumbrance amounts from FY 2022-23 for permanent and temporary salaries and per diems. The limitation on expenditures for permanent and temporary salaries and per diems for FY 2024-25 shall be increased by certified encumbrance amounts from FY 2023-24 for permanent and temporary salaries and per diems. Encumbered amounts shall be calculated in accordance with section 81-138.01. Whew, that's a lot of information. So that is what section 21 is. So going back up to striking section 3, definitions contained in the Nebraska Accounting System Manual and amendments, any amendments thereto on file with the clerk of the legislature are hereby adopted by the legislature as the definition for this act, except as provided in section 21 of this act. Now, the question I have is if we are to adopt this act, pass this law, pass this bill, if we are to adopt this, then does section 21 of this act automatically become incorporated into the Nebraska Accounting System Manual filed with the clerk of the legislature? Also, how do I get a copy of the Nebraska Accounting System Manual filed with the clerk of the legislature? I'm wondering if this is the kind of thing that you can find online under things that are filed with the clerk of the legislature. I don't know. We have all kinds of reports online. If you go to the legislature's website, there's on the left-hand side a tab that says, of all things, reports. I know, right? And with that, where it says reports, let's see. Agency reports, standing committee reports. I don't see where this reviser of statute reports. Yeah, see, now where would this be? Where would this be housed? Where would the Nebraska Accounting System Manual, if available, publicly available, where is it publicly available? Because it is filed with the clerk of the legislature. So I'm going to do something super high tech. I'm going to Google it. DAS website. What? That makes sense. State Accounting Manual Table of Contents. Of course it's with the DAS website. Department of Administrative Services. Why wouldn't it be with them? That is exactly where you would want your accounting systems manual to be, but it does say it's on file with the clerk of the legislature, which does, I find, to be a bit confusing if it's with the AS. I just am curious. And now I kind of want to know, does the clerk of the legislature have a paper copy of the Nebraska Accounting Systems Manual? And if so, how long is it? And if you do, will parts of this section 21 specifically be added as an addendum to said Nebraska Accounting System Manual? It is now 7:14. And I think that if I stop talking, that perhaps the speaker will have a motion for cloture if I just stop talking. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Mr. Clerk, you have a motion on your desk?
I do, Mr. President. Speaker Arch moved to invoke cloture pursuant to Rule 7, Section 10 on LB 816, excuse me.
Speaker Arch, for what purpose do you rise?
Call the House, roll call vote, regular order.
There has been a request to place the House under call. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record.
15 ayes, 2 nays, place House under call.
The House is under call. Senators, please record your presence. Those unexcused senators outside the chamber, please return to the chamber and record your presence. All unauthorized personnel, please leave the floor. The House is under call. Speaker Arch, we're missing Senator Bostar. May we proceed?
Yes, please.
Members, the first vote is the motion to invoke cloture. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
41 ayes, no nays to invoke cloture, Mr. President.
Cloture is invoked. And the next vote is on the adoption of FA 75. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
0 ayes, 39 nays, Mr. President, on the adoption of the amendment.
The amendment is not adopted. Senator Ballard, you're recognized for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that LB 816 be advanced to ENR for engrossing.
Senators, you have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. It is adopted. It is advanced. Raise the call. Mr. Clerk, for items.
Mr. President, amendment to be printed from Senator Michaela Cavanaugh to LB 816. Additionally, conflict of interest statement filed by Senator Kauth. That'll be on file in the clerk's office. Next item on the agenda, Mr. President, Legislative Bill 799, select file. First of all, Senator, I have ENR amendments.
Senator Ballard, you're recognized.
Mr. President, I move the ENR amendments to LB 799 be adopted.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ENR amendments are adopted.
Mr. President, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh would move to bracket Legislative Bill 799 until June 2nd, 2023.
Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, LB 799, judges' salaries. Let's see. LB 799. Okay, so we just passed with ENR. Voice vote. Oh, let's see what the ENR is. I'm curious how many people read the ENR amendments before we do our voice vote on them. And you don't have to do a voice vote. You can do a record vote on ENR if you so choose. So, okay. On page 1, beginning with judges, beginning with judges in line 1 through line 4 and insert, quote, law to amend sections 24-209, 24-211, 24-212, 24-503, 24-1109, 48-152, 48-153, 49-506, 49-617, 49-702, reissue revised statutes of Nebraska and sections 24-201 and 85-177, revised statutes cumulative supplement 2022 to change judges' salaries, provisions relating to published judicial opinions as prescribed. the number of county court judges and Nebraska workers' compensation court judges, and provisions relating to the College of Law to rename the reporter of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals as the reporter of decisions, and provide duties to harmonize provisions, to provide operative dates, to repeal the original sections, and to declare an emergency. Okay. Now, the interesting thing of this is the amount of work that went into it. So this is E&R, and that's a significant amount. So it was placed on select file on April 13th with E&R. We advanced to enrollment and review on April 11th. They turned that around pretty quickly, actually. Good on them. Okay, so we adopted the E&R amendments. And we adopted Senator DeBoer's amendment. There was a judiciary amendment adopted. And let's see, the judiciary amendment. But the E&R amendments, okay, so advanced to E&R, and then we have the E&R amendments placed on select file with E&R. But this is where I always get a little bit confused, because where is the final version? I suppose that's the judiciary. If AM, okay, follow with me if you can. I'm not sure I can. I'm getting a little tired. If AM 1255, which was Senator DeBoer's amendment on general file, was adopted, was it adopted to the Judiciary Committee Amendment AM 671? And if so, if I were to open up AM 671, would that be the conglomeration of the amendments that were moved forward on general file? So when I look at it, does AM 671 now become, nope, it doesn't. It doesn't, because I opened it and it was not. So where do I see the entirety of what we moved forward? This is more, I'm just thinking out loud to myself. Because that is where I get kind of all right, so the E&R amendments on page 1 strike beginning with, but I'm not entirely sure page 1 of what? Page 1 of the underlying bill? Guess I'll go to the introduced copy. Yes. Okay. On page 1 of the underlying bill, starting with judges, amends section. Okay. All right. I get it. I'm catching up here. The E&R amendments opens up more statute. Whew. Okay. Here's what's going on. We added amendments to the original underlying bill. And when we added amendments to the original underlying bill, E&R had to update, which is basically the main page of the first bill where it tells you what parts of statute are in the whole thing. And so magic, presto, voila, E&R amendments are adopted that update that first page. The first page originally read, a bill for an act relating to judges' salaries to amend section 24-201.01, revised statute supplement, cumulative supplement 2022, to change judges' salaries, to provide an operative date, to repeal the original section, and to declare an emergency, be it enacted by the people of the state of Nebraska. That was the original part. Now the E&R, a little bit different. When we strike it through, we add in several new parts of statute. I assume because we had a committee amendment that was most likely more than one bill packaged into it, we are now amending multiple sections of statute. And the fun/interesting thing here, although no, wait, would that have come out of, this is a judiciary bill, not a budget bill? Would Senator, how much time do I have left?
3 minutes.
Would Senator Wayne yield to a question?
Senator Wayne, will you yield to a question?
Yes.
Sorry, Senator Wayne, I'm tired. So in my head, because of the salaries bill, it was a appropriation bill, but it's a Judiciary Committee bill?
Yes.
How does that work?
What do you mean?
Well, like, why wasn't it an appropriations bill?
Because 30 years ago, all judicial salaries below judges went to appropriations. 30 years ago, we decided to peel off the judges and have them come in primarily because of sentencing issues and other things. So Judiciary Committee historically was able to ask the Supreme Court and judges on certain issues as it relates to sentencing.
Okay, but the last bill had judges in it, and that was an appropriations budget bill.
The Speaker Archer's bill?
Yeah.
That would have been the constitutional officers, which Supreme Court is the only thing laid out in the Constitution, and district courts, there's other judges that are laid out in statute.
Ah, thank you for the history lesson, Senator.
Actually, I don't know if that's really true. It sounded good when it came out of my head. So if anybody's listening, I could be wrong, but it sounded really good when
I mean, it made sense to me, but I choose to believe it. How about that? Okay, so we've got, wait, would Senator Wayne yield to another question?
Senator Wayne, will you yield to another question?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. So we had a Judiciary Committee amendment on this last go round. Did that include other bills?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. That's what I was slow on the uptake.
Yeah, it included a Court of Appeals reporting that could be online because it has to be in statute. That's the official record. So we updated that. And then there was a workers' comp judge bill, gives the flexibility to reduce the workers' comp court by 1. And there was one other bill.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
See, I was going on my own educational journey here, and I had to call in reinforcements because I couldn't answer my own question. So thank you for the clarification, Senator Wayne. That was very helpful. I think I'm about out of time, so I will yield until my next time.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. You're next in the queue. You are recognized.
What? Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, so LB 799, judges' salaries, amended, E&R amendments. All right, here we go. We got the bill, we got the committee amendment, we got the E&R amendments that update the statute to be reflective of the amendment that we passed the last go round. And now, we should have an updated, do we have an updated fiscal note? No, just the original fiscal note, which is expenditures 2023-24 is $2,156,105 of general funds, and then cash funds $105,447. So curious what the cash funds are about. Supreme Court judges receive an increase in salary. Their agency also receives one. Worker Compensation Court. It doesn't say cash fund. Salaries, court judges, salaries are based. I'm just curious now what the cash fund is that we're taking $100,000 out of, because it's on there. So $105,477.09. Don't forget about the 9 cents. I'm guessing it comes out of the Workers' Compensation Court cash fund because they have a fiscal note that specifically reflects that amount. Cool beans. All right. So, as provided in Nebraska Revised Statute, Section 48-159, each judge of the Nebraska Workers' Compensation Court shall receive an annual salary of 92.5% of the salary set for the Chief Justice and judges of the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court judges receive an increase in salary, the Workers' Compensation Court judges also receive an increase. The quote benefits increase stated below is for FICA and the Medicare surcharge for the additional salary amount. LB 799 provides an 8% increase on July 1, 2023, and an 8% increase on July 1, 2024. Cool. Great. So there we go. The cash fund is a workers' compensation court cash fund, presumably because we are paying workers' compensation court judges. So there you go. That was a fun little looky-loo under the hood. See what it says. Then we have the committee statement. Came out 8-0. We've got the proponents. Senator DeBoer, Chief Justice Mike Heavican, Dave Lopez, the Governor's Chief of Staff, Corey Steele, the Nebraska Administrative Office of Courts and Probation, Suzanne Strong, District Court Judges, Tricia Freeman, County Judges Association, Jason Grams, Nebraska State Bar Association. LB 799 increases the salary of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court starting July 1, 2023.
1 minute.
Thank you. The salary will be $214,300.63. Starting on July 1, 2024, the salary will be $231,444.68. The amendment reduces the salary to 212 and 225. Okay. So that's what we did. We increased the salary, but also reduced the salary at the same time. Easy peasy. I think I'm going to just I'm going to waive my closing and just let us get to, just do call of the House and we can vote on this bracket motion. Thank you.
There's been a request to place the House under call. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Mr. Clerk.
8 ayes, 3 nays, Mr. President, place the House under call.
The House is under call. Senators, please record your presence. Those unexcused senators outside the chamber, please return to the chamber and record your presence. All unauthorized personnel, please leave the floor. The House is under call. Senator Brewer, please return to the chamber. The House is under call. Senator Kavanaugh, we are missing Senator Mosier and Senator Brewer. How would you like to proceed? Okay, Mr. Clerk, we may proceed. The question before the body is the bracket motion, motion 869. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed, nay. Has everyone voted who wishes to vote? Mr. Clerk, please record.
0 ayes, 34 nays, Mr. President, on the motion to bracket.
The bracket motion fails.
Mr. President, next motion, I have MO 86.
Excuse me, I raised the call.
Sorry, Mr. President. Concerning the bill, I've got MO 868 and MO 867, both with notes that Senator Michaela Kavanaugh would withdraw. In that case, Mr. President, I have nothing further on the bill.
Senator Ballard.
Mr. President, I move that LB 799 be advanced to ENR for engrossing.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. LB 799 advances. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, single name added. Senator John Kavanaugh, name added LB 254. Priority motion. Senator Slama would move to adjourn the body until Thursday, April 27, 2023 at 9:00 a.m.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. We are adjourned.